Well, according to Apple, it is after 7, so I think I'll start the meeting. The city clock is a little slow. So welcome to the June meeting of the Board of Education for the Lake Mills Area School District. The mission statement of the district is preparing all of today's students for tomorrow's opportunities. I would ask for a verification of the meeting notice.
Yes, it was posted on the LMASD website at the Lake Mills Post Office and submitted to the Lake Mills Leader.
Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. I would ask if you would stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could have a roll call, please.
Brianna Beselick.
Here.
Dawn Delaney.
Here.
Ken Eimers.
Here.
Amy Litcher.
Here.
Robert D'Imperio.
Here. We have a quorum. I would ask if there's any revisions to the agenda. Hearing none, I would ask for a motion for approval of the agenda as presented.
I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The agenda is approved. The first item on the agenda, board reports. Dr. Delaney.
Regarding correspondence, we received a thank you letter for a memorial contribution from the family of Diane Fritsch.
Okay, thank you. Next, administrative reports. Dr. Olson.
Hi, tonight we have with us Miss Victoria Pratt, who's the Executive Director for the Jefferson County Economic Development Consortium and President of Thrive Economic Development. And she's going to share an opportunity with us. We have been working behind the scenes regarding career readiness. I know when we had done the community survey in the fall, there was really an overwhelming response to say, like, you can't just push four-year colleges, which I don't think we necessarily were. We just by nature have a lot of students that graduate and go into either a 2-year or 4-year university. But I think any of you that own businesses or work in the area see the need for talent right here in the area. And we also recognize that there are really good paying jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree. And we do want to keep our talent in this area as well. So Victoria, I'm going to introduce you. She has a slideshow to walk through, and then she's going to answer any questions you may have.
You're going to click? Beautiful. I have an assistant, my lovely assistant Vanna, is with us this evening, so that's wonderful. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk about this, and everybody can hear me, right? 'Cause I can make a lot of noise without this, but I just wanted to make sure. And I just want to say one thing really loud and clear and up front. I've been doing this work for 30 years in 5 states. I am a product of a public school system myself, and a kid that was basically told when I said I wanted to go to college, I got to college? Well, you know, we can put you to work here, we can put you to work there. At the end of the day, I don't care how many years you go to college. Isn't the goal to get a job? Isn't the goal to work? So I always kind of bristle when I hear college as an alternative to going to work, or work as an alternative to going to college, because the goal here is to prepare people to be able to go out into the world and take care of themselves and their families by themselves. I mean, that should be the goal, right? At least from my view, but then again, I wasn't raised to be an educator. I'm just a dumb economic developer. So what we're going to talk about tonight is an initiative that we're calling the Heartland Talent Initiative. And I'm going to give you a lot of information and data about what's really going on in the state of Wisconsin and in Jefferson County with our employers, with our demographics. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what the Heartland Talent Initiative is and why we're having this conversation. So we want to do a test run. We want to run a pilot program and see if it works, if it's replicable, and if it's scalable and sustainable. And the reason that we want to do that, there are many, many reasons. I think chief among them, as your frontline economic developer, I'm getting very tired of being yelled at by businesses in every industry sector about the fact that we have no workers, and yet every workforce development program out there functioning in the state of Wisconsin is claiming nothing but victory. Everybody is doing a fabulous job, and yet we have no workers. And yet I visit businesses every day that say to me, if you can find me 50 people, I'll build another 150,000 square feet tomorrow. Just find me the workers. I need human beings. I met with a company today that gave me that very same story again. So we're talking about doing this initiative. We're talking about doing that pilot at the Lake Mills School District. And the reasons are several. Number one, it's a small enough community and a small enough district that we think all the contacts will be manageable. But really one of the biggest reasons as well is that you have a district superintendent that totally understands this connection, that K through 12 is probably the baseline for true workforce development, because this is where you learn the skills necessary to be successful in the world. You know, we can teach you how to weld, we can teach you how to do financial audits, but if you're not learning the baseline skills along the way, if you don't understand what work is and that you have a role to play in this, then we're in bigger trouble. So, next slide. Let's talk about it. First of all, let's talk about who I am. Like, why am I here standing in front of you? So Jefferson County has an economic development consortium, and we put together a public-private partnership called Thrive Economic Development. And we're a 501c3. We've been around for 5 years, established in the summer of 2016. That board of directors consists of private sector business leaders and owners, and some representatives from Madison College, from MPTC, and from UW-Whitewater. Why? Because Thrive covers Dodge and Jefferson counties, so we're a 2-county economic development organization. Our focus areas, very straightforward. Business development, what does that mean? It means we work to attract primary industry sector employers to the area, and we work to retain our primary industry sector employers. Workforce development, that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And of course, our job, because we are the only entity charged with doing this, our job is to build that value proposition. So why should a business that's currently not doing business in our region consider doing business in our region? What are the factors that make this a good place for doing business? Our job is to brand and market all of the assets and resources that businesses care about to our target industry sectors, and also to work with our existing businesses who, again, are yelling at me daily about the fact that there are no workers, and working with them to try to come up with creative ways to keep them here and make sure that they grow in place. So that's who we are, and that's what we do. And if you go to thrived.org, we have lots and lots of information. So next slide. I've been saying for years demography is destiny. Here's why. If you take a look at this data, we've got some pretty harsh realities, and anybody who's heard me speak has heard me say, and it still takes 22 years to make a 22-year-old worker. We have not figured out how to expedite that process. So, that in mind, take a look at the numbers here. We currently have fewer working folks than in previous decades, and we have lower labor participation rates, and we're facing a silver boom in Jefferson County as well as in the state of Wisconsin. But just take this into consideration. In 2010, 59.3% of the population in the county was working aged. By 2040, only 52.5% of the population in the county is working aged. And yet, 22% of the population in Jefferson County will be 65 plus. Now that is what we call a non-sustainable business model. That won't work. We've got to have people, working-aged people, available to be employed by our businesses, or we will lose our businesses. It's very simple. Next slide. Giving you just a quick current snapshot. Some of that data is state, some of it is county, so let's walk through that. Median household income for the state is 65,068. National, we're a little ahead of national, which is 62 and change. But if we start looking at average household income levels, we're a little bit under. Our income level, our average annual wage, in Jefferson County is the 46,162. So again, you all know the difference between median and average and household versus per capita. But this is some of the data that we need to talk about. Right now, we've got a 3.7% unemployment rate. The latest data is April 2021 for Jefferson County. So we are lower than the state, but remember what unemployment rates count. They only count the people who are still in the system. They don't count the people who dropped out of the system. So working-aged people who are not working are not in that unemployment rate unless they're trying to get unemployment benefits. If they dropped out because they need to stay home and provide child care, which is huge, then they're not showing up in the system at all. They're nowhere to be seen. So one of the other data points, and I didn't want to go into too much of this, but I would encourage you all to take a long, hard look at something called ALICE. And ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, and Employed. That data is available by county and then by communities inside of the counties. The ALICE data reveals that the working households across Jefferson County, community by community, range from anywhere from 39% of those households up to almost 45% of those households are at struggling. What does that mean? It means based on their wages and based on the actual cost of living in that dot on the map for their family size, they are just making ends meet. Now, that's another huge issue that feeds into housing and feeds into lots of other things. But this is where we are. So we need to see wages raised. And one of the ways that we need to do that is to ensure that our businesses stay here and grow here and can continue to attract workers, because they will pay for them. Everybody's wages have been raising precipitously. Next slide. So let's just take a look at wages by industry, and these are average weekly wages, and these are this is Jefferson County data. Our largest group of employees in Jefferson County, we do something in economic development called LQ, which basically looks at where are our strengths in terms of the skill set of our working population. We have more people in manufacturing than in any other industry sector. As a matter of fact, when you compare Jefferson County to the state of Wisconsin, we have 2.68 times the number of manufacturing workers, and specifically in food and beverage processing, than the rest of the state. So we have a real strength there. Now let's take a look at what those average weekly wages are, right? So if you look at manufacturing in Jefferson County, that average weekly wage comes out to $69,472 a year. So remember that average wage that you saw on the slide earlier, that $46,000? Well, that's averaged out across all industries. That's just average wages. But in manufacturing in Jefferson County, guess what? People are making money. People are making money. It's not a bad gig. So they are decent paying jobs. I also thought I'd point out that education and health services as an industry sector, because they lump them together, the feds lump them together, and then we can go in and dig out this average annual wage, is only $46,852. And those, I think, require a college degree. So, next slide. Commutation patterns. Here's an interesting little data point that I deal with every day of my life. Over 63% of the employed residents of Jefferson County leave the county every day to go to work. Over 63% leave the county. Where do they go? Waukesha County, Dane County, Milwaukee County, Walworth County. Some go up to Dodge County. So 63% plus are commuting out. In real numbers, 17,443 commute in and 28,037 commute out. So that's a data point that gives me agita on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about what truly influences career choices. I just love to ask this question. How many of you in the room today are employed in the field that you went to college for? I see, it's education. You guys all do this. In the real world, that just doesn't happen. You know, most people went to college for this and they ended up doing that. Research tells us over and over and over again that the single greatest influence on career choice is the personal experiences and the interests. So it's the two things combined, but it's what people are exposed to. So they need exposure. And interestingly enough, it's not your parents, it's not the schools, it's not the kids in the neighborhood. It's what they're exposed to, what they get a chance to see, feel, and experience. The vast majority of people who end up working in manufacturing actually end up there. That wasn't their first choice. They weren't prepared. And they could have been, but they weren't. And so they then backtrack and have to start in at entry level in order to get the skills and learn the business well enough to start making the real money. And the real money's there, and the beauty of most of the businesses is they will train and they will teach and they will give you those skills. So we know from a personal experience that because we've got so many stories of this, and Dr. Olson and I have talked about this a little bit from her previous experience, but I've certainly seen it in my 30 years of doing this, that getting kids opportunities, youth apprenticeships, multiple tours in different facilities so that they really get a sense of, oh, this is what goes on in here. Because it's just a building with a name on the front of it, and they have no idea all the career opportunities that exist inside of it and how things are actually done. I mean, the joke about you don't want to see how the sausage is made, you do. You should walk Jones, you should walk Johnsonville. Those of us who have the privilege of doing these things on a regular basis, you'd be amazed at how the sausage is made. Turns out that is truly, truly, truly important. We have got to get kids exposed to the career opportunities and let them see it in a way that's meaningful for them. So next slide. As we look into the future, what types of jobs, what types of careers do we see growing? So this is where we start to scratch the surface of what we're talking about in the Heartland Talent Initiative. Because I'm not necessarily talking about jobs that are open today. I'm talking about career opportunities that can exist across a wide swath of industries. So here in the manufacturing sector, if you take a look at the projections for the job growth within the manufacturing sector that is predicted between 2016 and 2026, so that 10 years time frame, software developers. Turns out everybody needs software developers, right? That is a critical career, as is marketing, human resources, financial managers, accountants, salespeople. All of those are career choices that are also growing in manufacturing. Software developers are used heavily. The average person, though, has no idea that Trek in Waterloo or Siljan here in Lake Mills or Johnsonville Sausage in Watertown hires people with these skill sets. They think everybody that goes into that building is making sausage. They're not. They're absolutely not. Manufacturing activity is surging at the moment. Right now in the United States of America, there are an estimated 500,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs. The estimates are that 2.1 million manufacturing jobs will remain unfilled by 2030. Well, that's frightening. Next slide. Professional and business services, another industry sector. What are they going to be hiring in the next 5 years? Because, I mean, we're 5 years away from 2026. I don't know how that happened. And here you are again, software developers, marketing people, finance people. Again, I think for the average person, if they look at a business that, like a Baker Tilly or someone like that that provides business services, and they think, oh, they only hire accountants. Nope, they hire all kinds of people. So it's making people aware, making your kids in your school aware of the vast career opportunities that exist, and more than that. So the reality is, if a student is interested in software development, she can work anywhere, not just Microsoft or Google, although that's not a bad gig. And if the student likes finance, he doesn't have to just work at a bank. He can actually work anywhere because everybody hires people with those skills. Next slide. So research also tells us, and that's from the Manufacturing Institute, so that's surveys and surveys and surveys of all of these major employers all over the place, and what do we hear consistently? Young adults are disconnected from the world of work. What does the data tell us? Right now, as of April 2021, this is current data, the unemployment rate, remember I told you it was 3.8? For 18 and 19-year-olds, 13%. Why are 18 and 19-year-olds not working? Why is that? Were you working at 18? I'd been working for 4 years at 18. I don't get it. Why is that happening? So again, when I talked about the labor participation rates, we've got working age people that aren't working. Why is that happening? Only 12% of employers feel that new high school graduates are ready for work. And ready for work isn't welding. Ready for work is, so this is a place you come to every day where you do what we tell you to do, and then we pay you for it, and that's how that contract works. That's what ready for work means, right? Employers tell us, nope, they don't quite understand that. Next slide. So we want to talk a little bit more about career-based learning. And again, I firmly believe, I don't care how many years you go to college, you're supposed to go to work at some point. Even if you go to work for yourself. I mean, work is work, right? That's why they don't call it vacation. That's why they call it work. Career-based learning is that opportunity to introduce kids to the real world of work, where they can figure out how all those academic and technical skills actually are put into play. Like, why did you have to learn this? Anybody remember the movie Peggy Sue Gets Married, or Peggy Sue Got Married? I love the line because she wakes up one day and she's like 50 years old, but she's back in high school with her parents. She stands up in the algebra class and she says, I happen to know I'm never going to use this, so I'm leaving now, right? Oh, I loved that line because I felt exactly that way, although I felt that way when I was 14. I'm never going to use this. Real world experiences where they understand all this stuff that they have been sitting in classrooms learning. Why do they need this? How does it apply? What does it mean in the real world? Exposing kids to more of that and those critical workplace skills, which are really the soft skills. Understanding that this is a team that gets this done. It's not one person making the sausage, it's all y'all. Y'all got to be here, and everything's got to happen in exactly the right way for this to get out the door, and then for it to get to the place where it can be sold and the profits come back here and everybody gets a job, and that's how it works, right? So we want to change and create more opportunities for the Lake Mills School District kids to be able to have more career-based learning opportunities. And again, please don't take that as criticism. I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that you haven't been doing a good job. What I am saying is we want to do more. We want to do more. So next slide. It's what we're talking about is exposing the young people who are already here. So when we talk about why is it so hard to find workers, lowest fertility rates, lowest birth rates, rising population of age 65 plus, and here's a news flash, people are not moving to Wisconsin. So these kids are already here. We don't have to convince them to move here. They're here. And a lot of them may be thinking that they have to leave here in order to have a career, that they have to leave here in order to find those real world experiences. We certainly hope that we can impact that in a positive way. So next slide. So this is I don't know how well you can see this, and I'm happy to share the slideshow later if you want it for any reason. But this is my 20-mile bubble. So 20 mile is absolutely arbitrary, but to the average kid in high school, they're vaguely familiar with stuff that's quote unquote around them. So a 20-mile bubble felt like the right number from talking to lots of kids and lots of teachers across schools in the two-county region. We're going to talk more about this in a minute, but how many schools do you think there are in that bubble? I mean, I know that there are at least 15 school districts in that 20-mile radius. And I know that if you went out and talked to the employers in any community, because I do this every day, and I ask them, so if you pull the zip codes of your current employees, the people who are working for you today, how big is your draw area, right? And business after business, I mean, some of them have got it like right down to 42 and a half miles. I'm like, wow, you know that? That's amazing. And others are telling me, well, we're busing people in from Beloit, and, it's 50, 60 miles. It's all over the place, depending on the business, depending on where they're located. But it's not just what's right under your nose. It's not. So, next slide. The Heartland Talent Initiative is, we want to do this to increase the pipeline of workers for area businesses over time. So it's not about filling today's jobs, which of course is what they're yelling and screaming about every day. This is not about today's jobs. It's about your future pipeline of workers. And when I have these conversations with my business owners and managers, they totally get this, and they admit that they haven't been doing the best job possible either. So we want to run this pilot program, learn from our mistakes, figure out if it's replicable and scalable. I was on the phone again today with WEDC. They desperately want to see this run as a pilot program because they want to see if it works, because we've got to roll it out across the state because everybody is in the same predicament, right? So what are the outcomes that we want to see? We want to see increased student awareness of the career opportunities that exist in their known space. We want to increase the number of students that participate in on-site career experiences, going out to do tours. We want to increase the number of kids that pick up youth apprenticeships and get involved in other ways. We also want to increase the connectivity and the interaction between the businesses and the school districts. So every one of them, and we certainly want to see that increase rapidly for the Lake Mills School District as a result of running the pilot here. Every employer, as I said, is hurting. There's no end in sight. Far too many of our future pipeline of workers lack any knowledge of the career opportunities that are here. So next slide. We are starting the process right now of surveying the major employers that are in that 20-mile radius. And we're surveying them to get very specific data on the career opportunities that they offer. So again, asking Johnsonville, aside from the people who are making the sausage, what else you got going on inside there, right? And then linking with that data the minimum education levels required for someone to come into a job and the current wage ranges for those careers. Ultimately, we're going to put that together in a database that says, if you like finance, here's the minimum education levels, and here are the pay ranges of employers that are within this 20-mile bubble around the Lake Mills School District right now. Now, we're not giving you the names of every one of those businesses, but we want you to become aware of this. And then if you have an interest in linking, the other side of the survey is every one of those employers is going to get pinged on Will you create youth apprenticeship opportunities? Will you work with the school district to get kids in for tours? Will you create summer internships? Will you, right? Because we need to get them invested at the same time as we get the school invested. It's got to be a two-way street across the board. And I have to tell you, every single business that I have had this conversation with has said two things to me. Yes, we've been really bad at this, and yes, please do this. So, you know, those are the things that I need to hear, because I actually don't need more work. So, but what I do need from this group, from this body, is your support and your help and your guidance and your direction, because as we bring this into the schools, it's figuring out, how do we get this information to the kids in a way that's relevant and meaningful? How do we make those connections? How do we create those opportunities for kids to have those real world of work experiences before they graduate from high school? So next slide, please. So when I start by dropping that pin in Lake Mills, and I go out and I have the conversations with the businesses, and I'm just going to pick on the one who told me 42 miles, right? And I said, so outside of the school that you pay taxes to, how many schools are you involved in? Like, you already know you're drawing from a 42-mile radius. So if you put that on a map and we identify for you all of the schools that are within that 42-mile radius that you're currently drawing from, what are you doing to get out there to have conversations with those kids in those schools today about the future career opportunities that your business offers? Because you better start caring about where tomorrow's workers are coming from. It isn't just the jobs you have open today. Like I said, every business I talk to says, oh yeah, we should be doing that. And oh, please do this. Please help us do this. So that's what we want to do, and we want to start here. We want Lake Mills School District to be the pilot program to work with us. Last slide, just a quick snapshot of the employers that are in that 20-mile radius. Just a few of them. I mean, this certainly isn't everybody. But I can tell you UPS hires software developers and marketing professionals and finance professionals, as does Jefferson County Sheriff Department, right? Not everybody there carries a gun and a badge. Just as Jones, my goodness, Philip Jones has given me an earful, right? Not everybody in there is making sausage. So there are lots and lots and lots of opportunities that are right here, and we want to make that connection in a much more meaningful way. And we're looking to do it here. So, questions, comments? Y'all think I'm crazy?
Well, thanks. So we did, for the first time, hire our own youth apprentice in technology in the district. I talked to him today. I'm like, how many hours are you working over the summer each week? He's like, 40 hours a week. And I'm like, that is a junior going to be a senior. So when you think about the experiences and the hours he's putting in over the summer month, he's working a full-time job with us and gaining a lot of experience under Chris Cerniak's tutelage. So hoping to expand that and then expand our youth apprenticeship program and just other work-related experiences as well. I know Victoria and I talked about doing business and industry tours in the fall, and also getting our staff out there into the businesses as well, because it's hard for the staff to encourage that if they themselves have not been out into some of these same businesses and have this same information. So we'll be working together on that. So I don't know if the board has any questions.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, Tanya, was how did you see this connection? Is it bringing the leaders from some of these organizations to the school and doing like a poster session or something where they're actually telling students about things, where they walk through or something? Or is it taking the students to these different?
I think a little of each, but we definitely want to get the students into the different businesses and industries.
Just the practical.
Just to see for themselves, like Victoria said. I think sometimes you have a mindset, especially when it comes to manufacturing, of like, oh, it must be dirty in there, or it must be this or that. And once you get kids inside there, you see a whole different environment that you think might be motivating for some kids who might not have thought of that as a career option.
I think that's absolutely my favorite response, yes, and it truly is a yes, and. I mean, for many, I've been on lots and lots of tours with school kids and taking them into different plants. As I said, I've done this for 30 years in 5 states, and as we have become more and more and more automated, I mean, across industry sectors, whether I'm talking food and beverage or we're making motorcycles or cars or airplanes, to watch eyes just like wide open, it's like, wow, you can eat off of these floors and look at look at this equipment. I mean, who builds this equipment? Where is this coming from? How does this happen? Yeah. So as a country, we make stuff, and that's a good thing, and we need to keep making a lot of stuff. So there's nothing wrong with making stuff for a living. Nothing. It's really important. It's what built this country. Yeah, we got to keep making stuff. Cool stuff that everybody else wants. So, yes, well, yeah, the state that made bratwurst famous, right here. So now the whole country knows what bratwurst is. Yeah, that's another skill set that we're really running up against with problems. We're running out of harvest facilities, and we are running out of people who understand that in order for you to have that brat, something's got to die. So we got to raise it, we got to slaughter it, we got to do all this other stuff, and all of this happens, and it's called the ecosystem of the food chain, right? I mean, that's how this works. This is farm country, and it's amazing the conversations I have in farm country communities here where people are resistant to that. It's, well, we want that to be a field, and we don't necessarily want manufacturing, and unless they're going to be shopping in your field, honey, we're going to have to figure out how we turn that into something and get it on a grocery shelf. So there's, a miracle happens in between, and it goes on a grocery shelf and somebody buys it and life goes on. That's how that works. So I'm probably going to be filleted for that. Is it press in the room? Yeah, someone's going to yell at me for that. But it is what it is.
So I think what we'll do is I'll provide updates as we get moving here in the fall, and that'll be part of how we're monitoring things at the high school too. We'll give you a data point as far as where we were at last year with Youth Apprentice, and then set a goal for how do we increase that, and then keep
tours,
reporting out to the
company
board.
tours,
Yep.
And getting more of the businesses to actually come into the school. I mean, some of that is blah, blah, blah. I mean, unless they bring fun stuff with them. Bring in the robot that's building that thing, and then they'll get excited. But giving them the opportunity to get out and actually see it in some way. I mean, my own personal experience in doing this for a living is the more kids walk those floors, the more excited they get about what's happening out there, and they can see different ways that they might fit into that process. And again, it may be making the sausage, but it may be doing the marketing, right? Maybe developing the software that actually runs all those robots that are on the floor.
All
Cool
right.
stuff.
Any other questions?
Are you involved? I know there was a presentation by, forgive me, the opportunities, I know it was the opportunities group at the high school are you involved in the connections not only for the students that go into the accounting and stuff like that, but also the students with the special needs and to connect in that respect as well?
Every employer, I mean, there's a reason Jefferson County Sheriff is up there, right? I mean, so it's every employer is looking for employees. My side of the house doesn't work with the individuals trying to find the jobs. My side of the house works with the employers. So if that's what you're asking, maybe that's not what you're asking. Yeah, I don't work with the people looking for jobs. I work with the employers.
Okay.
Because you know what? As long as those folks are able to continue turning a profit in our dot on the map, then someone will have a job and taxes will be paid. So that's the customer.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. It was a great presentation. All right, I'm going to kind of whip through the rest of my report. Second thing you see there are some recommended class sizes. We talked about this at the core team meeting as we were trying to determine sizes needed for a potential new primary school. We started talking about recommended class sizes, and while we don't want to put this into policy because there's just so many factors that go into that we don't want to all of a sudden say we can't abide by policy, we would say that as we are scheduling classes for the next year, this is kind of the size recommendation we would go into. Now, obviously, when we start getting into September and we have move-ins and things like that, we're not going to add a teacher mid-year, because classes go up to, 21 in K2 instead of staying at 20. But I guess I was just looking for a little bit of feedback from the board on this. Is this, approximately where we want to be, about 18 in 4K, approximately 20 K2, 22 in grades 3 through 5, and then 6 through 12 is about 25, but that fluctuates quite a bit based on the class you're taking in high school. We said, AP classes might be as low as 10, band and orchestra are up, 40, but overall, in those upper grades, we don't want to go over 25, but due to the nature of reading and writing instruction and math instruction in those early grades with the one-on-one, we'd really like to stay, that 20, 22 student range. So at that point, if we would see a kindergarten class getting up to 23, 24, we would most likely come to the board and say, we would like to add another kindergarten section because these class sizes are getting larger. So I just want to know, like, are we in the range of what you were kind of feeling, or if you felt strongly in a different direction? I guess I'd like to hear that. Like I said, we weren't going to take a vote or put it in a policy or anything like that, but it just helps guide our future projects and how we set class sizes for the year. I'd say it's pretty average on.
I was encouraged to see the lower class sizes in the lower grades. And I was just interested at what point you start increasing, more, but it looks like through second grade it is.
Yeah, usually instruction, the setup changes a little bit when you go from second grade to third grade, and it just looks a little different, so you can handle a little larger class size. But, when Amanda and I were talking, we said there's so many factors that go into that. So if you have a class that has more struggling learners, 22 can feel like a very large number. If you have a really high-performing class, teaching 25 isn't always an issue. We did look at the square footage, though, of the classrooms too, and real honestly, you start getting over 22. Like even at the middle school, we say 25, but if you put 25 kids in some of those middle school classrooms, it feels really, really tight. So, but like I said, we needed just kind of some guidelines to go off of as we were starting to look at the primary school, like do we want to figure about 20 per classroom in those classes so they can figure the square footage accordingly.
Are these numbers based on some, I guess, national educational data in terms of best practices?
I'd say based off of Amanda and I's experience teaching and being principals. I mean, realistically, I would say, I've taught elementary school, and I taught fourth grade and fifth grade for a lot of years, and I'd say in general, I always had 24, 25 kids. That was a long time ago. But you could really, I think as a teacher, you lose a little bit of a sense of being able to meet everybody's needs when you start getting up to 24, 25. You have more groups. It's harder to get around and give that individual or small group attention, which is why you'll see the class numbers lower in K2. And then, even 18 4-year-olds in a classroom feels like a lot if you've ever been in 4K. So it's a lot of 4-year-olds, but they always have an aide in there with them. So, okay, without hearing any feedback, I'll go on to the greenhouse. I would say even what Victoria was presenting, the career and technical education, it's important, and we are in an agricultural part of the state. And, our greenhouse is really, really old and outdated. And the more I even talked with Luke, which I didn't realize till about a week ago, was the fact that Lakeshore Technical College won't even partner with us because our greenhouse is too old and outdated to really meet the standards for a college level credit. And I was like, wow, that is really too bad. I know in the finance committee we talked about waiting on the ESSER monies because we really don't know exactly what we're going to have. However, we'd really like to get going on this greenhouse because every year we wait, it just puts us back another year. So if we started now, we would actually have that greenhouse done for the spring growing season. They'd be able to use it this winter for even hydroponics and other things that they would want to do, even though they've got the hydroponics in the classroom as well. But we would definitely be ready for the horticulture classes in the spring. I've been talking with the FFA alumni, and they're very supportive. They're willing to help out in any way possible. I know a couple of them are just waiting for tonight's meeting, and they're ready to get in there. And I think Rod's going to take out the LP tank, and the rest of that group is going to take down the greenhouse, which does save us some money. And then I think as we do some of the concrete work and things like that, that they're going to help us out, kind of call in some favors, some businesses that are ready to donate some in-kind work to that. So this is not going through Findorf, who we have hired for the referendum. That is a whole separate area. So we're not paying a percentage for them to do any of the general contracting. However, they said that if we had any questions or if we need to shoot sight lines for something, they definitely would, for free, kind of give us some pointers. But I included an attachment. I worked with Rod on this, and so Rod called up a couple of different companies and just got some rough estimates of what that would cost. But the sooner we can go out for bid for just the actual greenhouse, the sooner I can get those floor plans, which we need in order to do all of the other contracting work ahead of time. And obviously with digging and gas lines and things like that, we want to do that before the ground freezes if possible. This does go right in line with the ESSER monies because part of the conditions were to use for like outdoor classrooms. Greenhouse is definitely an outdoor classroom, and it's a nice way to actually have something, I think, to show for the stimulus money as well, and will help our students. And lastly, this does go hand in hand with our culinary arts class too, who will also be using the greenhouse along with the with Luke in the A classes.
I was just going to mention, we have a greenhouse at the elementary school.
Yeah.
What we're talking here about the high school. I know when I first read it, I was thinking of the little greenhouse outside of the elementary school, and then I realized, oh no, we were talking about
That elementary
different one.
greenhouse
So
is
just so
better than
people
our
know that
high
there's
school
two different
greenhouse.
greenhouses.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the program they have at the elementary is very, very robust. And I guess, long range plan, I'd like to figure out something at the middle school so that we do have that K-12. But yeah, the elementary program is phenomenal. And said, I think their greenhouse is in much better shape than the one we have at the high school right now. So. Okay, number 4, graduation. After having outdoor graduation this year, Kale came to me and asked if we could move graduation off of a Saturday or Sunday to a Friday night. They wanted to do it. It won't be quite underneath the lights, but by the time we'd be done with the graduation ceremony, it would be about 7:30. I think sunset, we looked, is right around 8 o'clock at that time of the year. And the nice thing about a Friday night graduation is it still gives families the entire weekend for graduation parties. It also provides a built-in rain date as well. If it would, for some reason, be inclement weather on a Friday night, we would have graduation on Saturday. I'm not sure if he meant Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. I'd like to get off the Memorial Day graduation because that really is not in accordance with hours of instruction by DPI guidelines. Seniors are still held by those same number of hours of instruction. This year it wasn't as big of a shift because Memorial Day was so close to our last day of school, but every once in a while when you have a Memorial Day that's a good 2 weeks before the last day of school, that is way out of line with hours of instruction. You can't let seniors out 2 weeks ahead of time. So, so I have that on the votes as far as amending the school calendar, because on the original school calendar, we already had the graduation date set for next year, and obviously we want to let families know right away. People plan their graduation parties a good year in advance. I'm sure they're already looking ahead to that date now. So, and the outside venue, I know those of you, you were all there. It just really accommodates a larger crowd. It's just a nice setting for graduation. So, and lastly, employee handbook revisions. So I attached those revisions, actually I must have them in the handbook section. Some of it had to do, the biggest piece was probably the grievance policy, since we updated the grievance policy in Neola. We also had to update the grievance policy in the handbook, and the other big issue that's there was the personal day payout, because obviously we'd like to encourage our teachers not to take their personal days if they don't need them. It's our advantage to have our teachers in the classroom and not be short subs when it comes to April and May, because right now our personal days are use them or lose them. I don't blame teachers for using them if they've got the right to use them. So I'm hoping that this will be an incentive to not use your personal day. I will come back a year from now and bring you data on that, because we don't have 2 years of data because of COVID as far as number of personal days used. So it was really hard to see. So we'll see, does this make a difference? Do people still feel like they need to burn their personal days, or has it helped alleviate that problem a little bit? So I don't know if there's any other handbook revisions you want me to talk through. Okay.
So any additional questions for Dr. Olson?
All right.
Hearing none, the next report will be from Ms. Naylor, the new Director of Business Services, to discuss the budget for the upcoming school year.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick recap of the discussions that we just kind of went through in regards to the 2021-22 budget. So as we talked about, we're waiting for the Joint Finance Committee to make some decisions and get moving on their work. So we should have a better idea after that. There's many variable parts and a lot of moving parts and variables that we're going to come to light and help us with our decisions and our final budget. So the 2021-22 revenue limit is going to reflect those estimates, as we talked about, for the general aid, the equalization property value, student enrollments, as well as our current summer school enrollments that we have, which we'll have a better idea in a couple weeks. In regards to the revenue portion, this includes a per pupil aid adjustment funded at $742 per FTE, which is a 0 increase over last year, and a $100 increase per pupil in the revenue limit. The total revenue budget for the general fund is $18,080,469, and the all fund is $26,736,322. For the expenditure side, these numbers are going to include all the wage and benefit increases that we had discussed in the finance meeting. So the general fund expense budget is $18,387,501, with the total budget expenditures for all funds as $26,766,855. As we talked about, the budget will be updated in October after we can finalize our revenue limit worksheet. So this is going to result in a modification of the tax levy, as well as the general aid and computer aid. Other adjustments were going to be in areas of open enrollment, private school vouchers, and some grant allocations. So the current estimated tax levy is $6,791,815. with a tax levy reflecting that $100 increase per member in the revenue limits. The current estimated mill rate right now is at $8.40. However, this is going to likely change with the updated equalization property value. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Olson, do we have anyone signed up for community input?
No, we don't.
We do not. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. And I suppose I should have asked this earlier. If anyone wants an item on the consent agenda taken off and to be dealt with separately, this would be a good time to identify that. Hearing none, the consent agenda consists of, hang on, don't you love technology? Approval of the May 10th regular meeting, approval of the May 10th Finance Committee proceedings, approval of the May 17th special meeting minutes, approval of vouchers and invoices, approval of treasurer's report, approval of personnel report, approval of FFA land agreement, approval of high school handbook, approval of revisions of school calendar for the 2022 graduation date, approval of the Wisconsin Alliance for Excellent Schools, Excellent School Networks, excuse me. So I would ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
The floor is open for discussion, questions or comments.
Did you also mention the carryover and vacation for administration, and I missed that?
Letter J.
I think you left that one.
Aha, no. No, we did. Hearing no other comments, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Don Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Robert D'Imperio,
Aye. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is approval of the greenhouse, as discussed in Dr. Olson's presentation. I would ask for a motion for its approval.
I move the board approve the construction of a greenhouse at the high school at a cost not to exceed $150,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Floor is open for discussion. Is it understood that this construction will be done using federal dollars?
Correct, the ESSER funds.
Having no further comments or questions, ask for a roll call vote, please.
Don Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Robert D'Imperio,
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is the approval of the Lake Mills Area School District Employee Handbook. Again, that consistent with Dr. Olson's presentation, I would ask for a motion for its approval.
I move the board approve the LMASD employee handbook as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The floor is open for discussion. Hearing none, I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Don Delaney,
Abstain.
Robert D'Imperio,
Aye. Motion carries with one abstention. Next is approval of the 21-22 pay increases for support staff, middle managers, and administration.
Approval of the budget.
Oh, you know, it's a good thing I've got help tonight. So, approval of the preliminary budget.
I move the board approve the 2021 to 2022 budget as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Don Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Robert D'Imperio,
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, the next item approval of the 21-22 pay increases for support staff, middle managers, and administrators. These were discussed during the Finance Committee meeting. I would ask for a motion for their approval.
I move the board approve the pay increase for support staff employees, middle managers, and administrators as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, comments? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Dawn Delaney,
Abstain.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Robert Timperio,
Aye. Motion carries with one abstention. The next item is the approval of the JEDI Consortium Agreement.
I move the board approve the JEDI Consortium Agreement for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dr. Olson, I assume that this is consistent with past consortium agreements with the JEDI Distance Ed?
Correct, I just participated in their annual meeting last Thursday night, so just, right, this is an annual renewal.
Is there an expectation with not having a virtual option being offered this coming year that the JEDI program will increase in participation?
Glad you asked that, Amy. Actually, Amanda will be presenting a report to you at the next board meeting with JEDI guidelines. In the past, we haven't, in very rare occasions, let elementary and middle school students participate in this. So we've written, I should say we, I've done nothing. Amanda will present guidelines as far as how we will move forward with that as the virtual option.
Other questions or comments? Roll call vote, please.
Dawn Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Robert Timperio,
Aye. Motion carries. Next is, on the agenda is approval of vaping litigation. This was discussed this evening in the Finance Committee meeting. It's our understanding that we have very limited obligations under this agreement. So I entertain a motion for its approval.
I move the board approve joining the vaping litigation as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Dawn Delaney,
Aye.
Robert Timperio,
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is approval of a trip to the National FFA Convention in October. I entertain a motion for its approval.
I move the board approve the October 27th through 29th, 2021 National FFA Convention overnight trip to Indianapolis, Indiana. It is understood that the board will incur no cost and will accept no liability for any funds lost for any reason.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? Hearing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Dawn Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Robert Timperio,
Aye. Motion carries. The next item is the approval of gifts. And again, we certainly have a very generous community. So I'd entertain a motion accepting the gifts.
I move the board accept the following gifts and thank the generous donors for their continued support of the students and programs of the Lake Mills Area School District. The Lake Mills Market's donation of hamburgers and brats to the elementary school for their end-of-the-year cookout, valued at $135, and to Lee Simon's donation of $876.67 to the Lake Mills High School Athletic Department in honor of Larry Radel.
Second.
Moved and seconded. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Dawn Delaney,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Robert D'Imperio.
Aye. Motion carries, and again, we thank our community for their support. Future agenda items for upcoming board meetings.
All right, so we'll bring back any budget adjustments as we know more through the state level. Wendy, Tasha, Ben, and I have been working on an RLAC agreement. It's going a little slower than expected with a couple of hiccups, so I'm not sure if we'll be bringing that to the July board meeting or not. I'll just kind of keep you informed as far as what's been happening. We do have the mandatory approval of the student academic standards, just kind of a blanket approval. And then I guess I might have a different conversation with you as far as, do you want to continue to approve the elementary and middle school handbooks? It's not a necessity because the bulk of those is based in policy, but if you do want to keep that as an annual approval, it doesn't hurt anything. It gives you a chance also to see those handbooks, but just know it's not a requirement. The strategic plan, I was actually going to have you approve tonight, but I thought it would be better to bring that in July. I'm working with Joe Schrader and his graphic artist to bring you the full document. Paul's actually helped out with some pictures with me as well. So basically, the graphic artist is going to take whatever pictures fits into the color scheme, so that's, I'll see tomorrow. But she's got a really nice layout of just packaging the strategic plan. So I thought it would be nicer to approve that document than just a Word document. And finally, I was going to actually mention this in my report. I know I had talked with some of you, but after talking with our epidemiologist on Friday, case rate is down to basically nothing countywide as far as no new cases. He said there's no reason to require masks in summer school, even in the hallways at all. He feels really confident with that. So I would like to send out an email to families and just say it's optional at this point. I walked through every summer school class today, and it's kind of a mixed bag of how that worked. And said summer school off to a great start, by the way. But I didn't even approach Sumrose with that. He approached me, and I was like, wow. So I thought, okay, I think we're finally in the clear. So that'll be nice as well. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. So I would call for a motion for adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
And before we do that, I want to thank my colleagues for keeping me on task. I appreciate that very much. All in favor say aye.
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 Nobody's opposed. Thank you.